you travel all over the world. You encounter the church all over the world. As you think about the 21st century church, what three, maybe two or three, are three of the most significant challenges facing the 21st century church?
Well, the 21st century church in the world, of course, the shift has already changed. The global south is the leading, as far as Christianity is concerned, is the leader in Christianity, and the church is rapidly growing. It's very important that we also have discipleship with that as well, in the rapidly growing church of the south. So I think that's very important that we keep that in mind, that people stay focused on who Jesus is and being filled with the Holy Spirit and what that means and where God is opening the door. I think also one of the challenges that the 21st century church has is that in the West, we become lazy and we become apathetic and forget that the world is asking and needing something and hungering for faith. I want to give you an example. I happen to be on the Council on Faith for the World Economic Forum. And last October in Abu Dhabi, we sat and listened to a plenary from the most brilliant folks in the world on what's referred to as the Fourth Industrial Revolution, happening now as we speak. The Fourth Industrial Revolution is all about technology. It's all about no need for humans anymore. It's all about machines. And one of the things that they stated in this whole, and these are the leaders of the world, stating that some of the results of this will be new nativism. People will go back to only the people that they're with, that they're like, that they will be with, and will retreat. And then it hit me that day, and then someone, actually Klaus Schwab, who's the founder of the World Economic Forum, came into our Council on Faith and said, if we ever needed you, we need you now, because faith will be the only safety net that people will find. Because we have the power now, we have the ability, if anything's wrong with you, handicapped in any way, you don't need to be handicapped, we can get rid of you, we can put you to sleep, you get too old, you don't need to suffer, we'll take care of you. All of these kinds of things of human engineering that I think is a huge challenge to the church. But I say, in this 21st century, God's people will stand up for life, will stand up for human life. We will find ourselves very much like the early church in Rome, that we value life, and I believe God is going to honor and guide us in standing up for many. And I don't mean a political fight. I'm talking about just living this out and valuing life, valuing people, and people will realize that they are made in the image of God, and will flourish.
Yeah. I was with somebody yesterday. It was Becky Pippert.
Yeah.
She was talking about being in Europe over these past several years, a great hunger among college-age students in France, which I did not know about.
Yeah.
But she was sort of talking about how the pendulum of secularism had swung so far that people had realized the emptiness that there was there. And the youth particularly are turning again and saying there has to be something more.
There is something
more.
more.
They're hungry for the church again.
Yes, I believe that. And I believe that when we look at the world today regarding sort of the battles with Islam and Christianity, I believe that there's hunger in Islam as well for Jesus and for reality and for what Christ brings. And so I think that we need to realize that God has called us in this day as never before. I mean, I just really keep saying all along, this is the moment for the church of Jesus Christ to be the hope that God intended in His kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. So many of the circles that I'm in, I've had the privilege to meet with Iranian religious leaders, and that's been a very marvelous thing when I've been asked to present on how and why we believe Jesus' words in caring for the least of these. Why would we do that? And it was a wonderful conversations.
Yeah. So you're talking to world leaders about why it's important to care for the least of these.
That's right.
And what would you say are a couple of those key things. Why should we care for the least of these?
Well, I just think it's, first of all, it is part of being a Christ follower, and also in the Old Testament as well. When we find the gleaner's piece in the Old Testament, where part of the law, and it was situated right in the part in Leviticus where it says, do not steal, but your fields, you're to leave the corners of your fields for the widows, the orphans, and the aliens. And then we find that all the way through Jesus' teaching as well. So that's who we are as people of God. We really can't live any other way if we're really going to be the people of God. It is about caring for the least of these, caring for the widows, the orphans, the aliens, the poor. And then I might add also, I love, John Wesley lived this out so marvelously. It's another reason why I'm so glad to be a Wesleyan. And when we see the model that happened in England. And so that's such an example of the power of the Holy Spirit that transformed lives, but then came along and transformed culture, And it was, Wesley, I'm sure had he not been kicked out of the church and had to go out to the coal fields, he would have never seen poverty, or he would have never been in touch with poor people. But then when he saw how they lived, and children being placed up in the coal mines, and having to work and no education if you were poor, and so forth. And then changed the laws on this. He didn't just say, "Oh, isn't that terrible?" But we're going to change this. We're going to change. That system is evil. Mm-hmm. I always loved the one on the corn laws, where the price of the price of grain had become high because they were making a lot of money on ale, and poor people couldn't buy bread. So I think in our day we'd have said, "Okay, everybody go to the grocery store, buy bread for the poor people and take it down." But that isn't what Wesley said. No, we're going to change the law so poor people can have dignity and buy their own bread. And so that's what they did. And then, of course, his great words right before he died to Wilberforce regarding slavery, that it was the most vile evil that had ever been under the sun, and needed to be taken care of. So I believe but that can't happen unless we have the power of the Holy Spirit at work in that process. Mm-hmm. So that's why I believe that, and then of course the historians tell us that what happened in England, England was saved from the bloody revolution that France had because of the revivals and the structural and social change that took place. That just happens. When we talk about revival, I think that true revival impacts the culture. It isn't just feeling good for a while. It is not just personal, but it will impact an entire city, an entire community, an entire area. That's where the change comes.